cusp on your wisdom teeth if you have them. Many of you don't even have wisdom teeth. Some of you who do have wisdom teeth have cusp patterns that are identical to gorilla's teeth. That doesn't prove anything, and I think Kent's argument that one designer could produce similar designs, God knows Detroit has done the same thing. You can put different labels on it. But the fact is that if you look at the full record, and I think Nick made this point a little more subtly than it should have been made, so I'm going to try to do it a little more resoundingly. If you look at the full record of biology, at the advances of the 20th century, at the Human Genome Project, at the processes of inoculation, at the medical knowledge that we have in this century, all of which are founded on the very same empirical generalizations as the interpretation of what I have called God's text, the natural world, which is evolution as a theory, then those data don't, individual data may stand or fall. We may show, and it's a common technique of my opponents, to pull out one or another example of something which didn't work out. And in some, and Piltdown, I'm really tired of hearing about Piltdown. It was anthropologists who exposed Piltdown in the textbooks. There's not a single contemporary textbook that teaches Piltdown except to tell that it was a hoax by an over-exuberant, overzealous, really person who was looking for a lot of kudos. Science works through anonymous, quiet work. Most people don't even remember one of the discoverers of deoxyribonucleic acid, partly because she was a woman and partly because she died before they gave the Nobel Prize. So Watson and Crick and her partner, got the prize. The fact is that evolution is the best interpretation of the natural record we have before us of biology, of process, biological process, and of the geologic record. Now my time's up.
Mike, your turn.
Thank you, sir. Well, we named a few similarities between man and ape, but the differences are just astronomical: hair, hands, feet, etc. And as far as just picking on one of the cavemen, what about Piltdown, Neanderthal, and Lucy? I mean, it's been discredited. There's just nothing there. Let's talk about what the evolutionists themselves think of evolution. They all prove each other's theories and totally impossible. I call that having not a leg to stand on myself. Each theory I know of proves all the others just totally impossible. There's no legs to hold that table up. How about these family trees that we see in our textbooks today? Those are certainly still in textbooks today. Well, Mary Leakey, and she's a very big-time evolutionist, says all those trees of life with their branches of our ancestors, that's a lot of nonsense. Why is that in our textbook if it's a bunch of nonsense? Stephen Jay Gould, I don't know of too many bigger evolutionists except for the ones I'm going to use some quotes from here, said this: the evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and nodes of their branches. That means what's alive today, folks. The rest is inference, however reasonable, not the evidence of fossils. These are lies that are being taught as fact, and we're not using half-truths. They've got to deal with what I'm saying today. They say these single-cell organisms are simple. Smaller is much more complex. Look at the microchip in a computer. That's very complex. The paramecium is single cell, but it's not simple. It's 100 times more complex than the space shuttle. And the space shuttle is the most complex thing I know of on the face of the planet. See, the probability of just one DNA arranging itself by chance has been calculated to be 1 chance in 10 to the 119,000th power. That's a big number. That's a very big number. There's only room in the entire universe for 2 times 10 to the 81st power electrons. I don't think there's much chance of that happening. And similar DNA codes can also prove the same design engineer wrote the codes. It does not prove evolution. There are two sides to look. There's two sides to look at here. This is what Harrison Matthews said. The fact of evolution is the backbone of biology. And biology is thus in the peculiar position of being a science founded on an unproved theory. Is this science or a faith? Evolution is just a very bad religion. I know that at least in paleoanthropology, data are still so sparse that theory heavily influences interpretations. Theories have, in the past, clearly reflected our current ideologies instead of the actual data. And ideologies and what people want to believe is what's being pushed in our science textbooks today. This is Dr. Colin Patterson, what he says. He went around asking, can you tell me anything you know about evolution? Any one thing that is true? He directed this question to the members of the Evolutionary Morphology Seminar, University of Chicago. The reply, one person stood up and said, I do know one thing, it ought not to be taught in high school. And I agree, it is not science, it is not fact. He even went further, replying to a letter one day, I fully agree with you on your comments on the lack of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I knew of any, fossil or living, I've never seen a living fossil, I would certainly included them. I will lay it on the line, there is not one such fossil. How come it's being used in our textbooks today as evidence for evolution? Why are Christians being made to feel like the minority? And it's just ridiculous, folks. David Rupp says in the years after Darwin, his advocates hoped to find predictable progressions in general. These have not been found. Yet the optimism has died hard, and some pure fantasy has crept into our textbooks. Evolutionists are saying this. This is not the creationist point of view. There are no missing links. The whole chain is missing. That's not what's being taught in the textbooks right there. The whole chain is missing. Absence of fossil evidence for intermediary stages has been a persistent and nagging problem for evolution. I'll say so. Stephen Gould said that. Big-time evolutionists. That's what they're saying, folks. I myself am convinced that the theory of evolution, especially to the extent to which it has been applied, will be one of the great jokes in the history books of the future. I believe we're seeing that now. Many scientists are now distancing themselves from evolution. Scientists who go about teaching that evolution is a fact of life are great con men. Folks, I'm just reading here quotes from what evolutionists say. Dr. Arthur Keith, evolution is unproved and unprovable. We believe it only because the only alternative is special creation, and that is unthinkable. And that is unthinkable to the anthropologist, I guess it's unthinkable to many of the scholars these days. Evolution is a fairy tale for grown-ups. This theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is useless. This has held back science for hundreds of years. It's just what happened to George Washington. He was sick. They taught the doctrine of humors back in his day. If you're sick, you've got bad blood. They laid him down, they laid his wrist open and bled him. They realized he was dying, so they opened up his other wrist. He died. They did wrong. Their assumptions were wrong. Their science was wrong. They were wrong. I'm afraid that our textbooks are dying right now. They're bleeding to death because there's not enough science in there. There's just fantasy. I will stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Power. 5 minutes. Thanks. Right. Let me appeal to you again to think about when somebody tells you that a fact has been discredited, or a theory, or a part of a theory has been discredited, or it's been shown to be nonsense. Don't take them at their word. Ask for the source. Ask for the text, right? And evaluate that yourself. And look, none of this is to the point. That individual aspects of this or that theory of evolution, they keep talking about evolution, that evolution is nonsense, that evolution is setback thinking, that evolution is being taught to our kids, and it's a bunch of lie. No one believes in evolution. Or that is to say, you cannot just believe in evolution. You have to believe in evolution via some mechanism, right? You have to have a theory of evolution. The current theory of evolution, not Darwin,